Welcome to the inaugural episode of Deep Thoughts, Shallow Plots. My name's Erika, and I really like to watch horror movies.
And my name's Katy, and I really like to overanalyze texts. And we're just two chill chicks who take horror flicks way too seriously.
Way too seriously. Today we are going to overanalyze the 2011 film The Cabin in the Woods, directed by Drew Goddard and written by Drew Goddard along with Joss Whedon.
All right, I'm excited. Let's get into it.
Let's do it. Katy, I don't know if you remember, but you and I saw this movie in theaters together.
I do remember because it was essentially the first horror film I watched.
That's true. I made you come with me.
Yeah.
And so you don't love horror movies as much as I do. So why did you decide to come see this movie with me?
For the now problematic reason that I enjoy Joss Whedon's writing. He's a bit of a problematic figure in these days, but I grew up on the Buffy and the Angel, even goddamn Dollhouse, you know.
Sure, yeah.
So I was like, yeah, this will be fun and probably not too scary. I was a little scared.
Absolutely. It's actually, Cabin in the Woods is one of those movies that I wish I could watch for the first time again. Because the first time you watch it, you're like taking in all of these, you know, these things, and you're trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, you know. And it's just a lot of fun. And yeah, a little bit scary. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely the whole time in the theater was like, there is going to be a zombie coming up behind me with a bear trap at any moment. And Erika will save me from it, so it's okay, and I'm not going to be scared, I swear.
Yeah. And we've actually watched this movie a lot since it came out. We've watched it together a lot.
It kind of became our movie.
And we've talked about it a lot. So we figured that that would be a really good place to start for our new podcast about horror movies.
Yeah. You want to give us a little rundown of
I
the
would
plot
love to.
for people who haven't seen it in a while?
Yeah, so if you've never seen Cabin in the Woods,
you should probably stop and go see it because you don't want it spoiled before you see it.
It's a highly recommend. Yeah, highly recommend. So basically it's about these 5 young people. We're led to believe they're in college.
Yeah.
And they're friends somehow. And they are going on they don't really explicitly say, but maybe like a weekend getaway to one of the characters' cousins' cabins in the woods. And
thus the title.
And so they're in this cabin, and through a series of events that we find out are not entirely within their control, they're led into the cellar, which is just completely full, packed
chock-a-block
to the brim with mysterious-looking artifacts. And we find out that they need to pick one that will basically deliver their punishment. We find out that this is being put on by a very mysterious company. Is that what we're calling them? A company?
I've just been calling them the company.
The company, yeah.
They've got a director.
Yeah, they do, yeah. They've got an R&D department. Yeah, they've got,
Maintenance.
Maintenance, absolutely. This company is...
They have interns.
They have interns, yes. I wonder how much... I hope that intern was getting paid.
I know, right?
I think he was.
They seem like a very wealthy company, so they definitely had the money, whether they are giving it or not.
Right.
I don't know.
Everyone should pay their interns. That's a sidebar. And they go into this the cellar in this cabin, you know, strewn about with a bunch of mysterious artifacts. And one of the characters, Dana, she finds a book and, you know, commits the ultimate faux pas in a horror movie, which is she reads a sentence in Latin out loud. Which summons a specific monster, and this is where we find out that there are many monsters that could have been summoned. But they summon the redneck zombie torture family of the Buckners. And the Buckners are then summoned, and hilarity ensues, you know?
Yeah, Marty does hit one with a bong, so I guess that was hilarity, actually.
That is hilarious. And it is the job of the redneck zombie torture family, the Buckners, to punish, meaning murder, these young people as a ancient ritual for what we only refer to them as the Ancient Ones. what I'm just kind of assuming are old gods who were once in charge of the world and still are, in that they need to be appeased seems like once a year, annually.
Yeah.
Appeased with human sacrifice, particularly a sacrifice of youth. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And it has, I don't want to give too much away just yet, but it has one of the better endings of any horror film that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I have thoughts about the ending too. Yeah. We'll get to that.
Yeah, because it's at the end, right?
Yeah.
So...
A very good place to end.
A very good place to end, yes. But we're just at the start. So, Katie, do you want to start anywhere in particular? We've seen this movie so many times. Is there anything that was, like, new to you this time? Also, probably the first time we watched this movie separately.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that, too. I was like, have I ever watched this without you? Maybe with, like, somebody else? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah. But that's because we talked during horror movies and we knew that we wanted to record this for the first episode of our podcast. Yeah. So we watched it separately. So, yeah. So anything like new this time that came around for you that you thought was really interesting?
One thing I was thinking about the company, actually.
Yeah.
Is how wild it is. Because this company seems pretty big. How many of them, down to like the kitchen staff, seems to know exactly what they're there for?
Right.
Because they're all involved in the betting pool. So they know that there are monsters and old gods and magic. And, like, can you imagine being somebody who works in a kitchen and also has to deal with, like, the weight of knowing that...
Of the ancient ones.
Yeah, who are currently slumbering.
And the sacrifice of human youth.
And then you're just cooking food for people who are, like, you know, over in the next room working on killing some co-eds.
Huh.
And an intern.
and they have an intern, right? Where'd they get that intern? Like, is he in college?
Yeah.
Like, what's he studying? What kind of credit is he hoping to get?
Because I mean, he's so close to being one of the sacrifices. He could be, you know, Marty instead of Marty.
I love Marty. I think maybe before we get too much further, we should establish the characters. So we have 5 main characters who create the 5 main archetypes. We've got Chris Hemsworth, who plays Kurt Vaughn. His archetype is the athlete, though I have thoughts about that.
Oh, me too.
Okay, good. We've got Kristen Connolly, who plays Dana Polk. She's the virgin. I have thoughts about that as well.
So many thoughts.
Yeah. We've got my boy Fran Krantz. Or Fran Krantz.
Yeah,
it's just Fran.
Krantz.
It's one Fran.
You just want to put the everywhere.
Who plays Marty Malansky.
I have never before heard any of these last names. Are they actually in the film?
Had to look them up. Yes. They are, yes. Mm-hmm. At least Jules's is. And then we have Anna Hutchinson, who plays Jules Loudon, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we have Jesse Williams, who plays Holden McCrae.
Yes. Yeah. And in order, that was the fool, the whore, and the scholar.
Indeed. Immediately we meet Dana and Jules, and we get to know a little bit about them, that they're friends, probably have been for a while.
Yeah, they seem cozy with each other.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, in the very first scene, we meet Dana, and she's not wearing any pants.
She's not. She's in front of an open window, not wearing pants.
Working on, like, a sketch or something.
Looking at an old sketch of Professor Fuckwad.
Yeah, I believe the professor that we are led to believe she had an extramarital affair with.
Yes, he was married.
He was married.
A young co-ed who is not yet married.
Yeah, so immediately not virginal behavior.
Not virginal behavior. I will come back to this.
Okay, yes. Immediately not very virginal.
We also, we have a lot of hints right from the beginning that these kids are not really perfect cutouts for their archetypes.
Right. And then that does get mentioned, right? Yeah. That, you know, the director, played by Sigourney Weaver, who is a treasure. I love Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, he's a treasure.
She mentions that, you know, they do the best with what they have.
Yes.
Right. But maybe they could have done better.
I mean, that's also the reason why Marty first becomes suspicious, is because he sees Kurt acting like some sort of aggro jock guy.
Yeah. He's a sociology major.
Yeah. And then Jules, who is pre-med.
Pre-med, yeah.
Is acting like overtly sexual, getting super drunk, super flirty, and not her normal behavior.
And Jesse Williams' character, Holden, he's new. We don't know him very well. We know that he's a friend of Kurt's.
He's got the fastest hands on the team, whatever that means.
He just transferred from state. Which state? I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. He transferred from state. So he's kind of new. We don't know him super well.
Did the company make him transfer?
Oh, wow. Maybe.
Did he even transfer?
I think one of the really interesting aspects of this film is the idea of free will.
Yeah.
And that's something that they mention. Bradley Whitford's character, the actors Richard Jenkins and Bradley Whitford playing Sitterson and Hadley.
Yes, our company men.
Yes, kind of overseeing.
Yes.
The sacrifice or the ritual, as you will.
And they're most often joined by Amy Acker as our chemist.
Yeah, it's your favorite.
I love Amy Acker.
Yeah.
She's beautiful.
Okay.
And what we say? Truman. There's also a Truman.
Oh, yeah.
Who is okay, this was the point I was going to make.
Okay.
About how he's a new recruit, and they're like, this isn't the Army or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder how many people they actually recruit from the Army. Because that actually makes a lot of sense to me.
You would think, yeah.
Because those are the people who are used to killing for, a greater, a greater cause.
And keeping a secret.
And keeping a secret.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these people are, military or CIA backgrounds.
Absolutely.
But, how do you get an intern?
How do you get that intern? These are, I've been, this movie's 10 years old. I've seen it. I've lost count of how many times I've seen it. And this is what really gives it, for me, really good staying power.
Yeah.
So I think, honestly, without further ado, my favorite character is Marty.
Yes.
He's the fool. The minute we're introduced to him, he's driving and smoking out of a gigantic bong that looks like a coffee travel mug.
Apparently, they also had to actually construct that bong. It's a real bong for the movie that they made.
I love that.
That can turn into, a non-functional coffee cup. Yeah. So I've heard.
I love that.
I mean, this movie has a lot of practical effects.
It does.
So
it does have good practical effects.
That is one of them.
Yes. And it's interesting because Marty, when they get into what appears to be like a Rambler, some kind of RV thing, to go to this cabin in the woods, we get a little bit of maybe foreshadowing of Marty talking about society, man.
Yeah. Society needs to crumble.
That's what he says, yeah.
And he specifically says that part of the problem is all of the surveillance and the technology.
Yeah, microchips in our heads.
Which, noticeably, is what is happening to all these children right now. I shouldn't call them children. They're young adults.
They're adults, yeah.
They're adults.
They're legally
They're
adults.
20-somethings.
They're the
early 20s.
They're what I refer to as the worst kind of adult, which is a legal adult. Because you have all the legal responsibility of being an adult, but you have no experience actually adulting.
No.
Yeah. So Marty's my favorite character, by far. He's hilarious. He is kind of one of the ones that's the most on track, kind of understanding what's going on.
He's definitely the first one to put it all together.
Yeah, he puts it together.
And nobody else does until...
And no one believes him.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because he's too foolish. We don't know.
Maybe it's because he's high and paranoid.
Also that, yeah.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to mention everything about this film that makes it just such a fantastic horror film. It's got really great body horror. Jules, when her and Kurt are in the woods having sex before her first kill, it's just a great shot of her getting stabbed through the hand.
Yeah.
Amazing horror acting. Fran Krantz screams his head off as he's being dragged off by a zombie.
My favorite scene actually in terms of the horror, it's one of the more understated ones.
Sure.
But there's the scene right when Dana and Marty are going through the elevators and they've seen enough monsters to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And we see them on the monitors and Marty is just holding on to Dana.
Yeah.
And they both look so goddamn traumatized. I mean, it's a different kind of horror. But I just feel that part in my body.
It's good horror acting.
Yeah. It's no matter if these kids get out of here, they're never leaving here. They're traumatized for life.
Exactly.
It's just their faces are really good in that moment.
And it's a great horror film because it literally contains every horror. When they go downstairs, quote unquote, downstairs, they see literally every horror. They see ghosts. They see
classic werewolf.
Classic werewolf, yeah. There's clowns.
Yeah. Clowns is the scariest one for you.
Yeah. Oh my god, I hate clowns so much.
The scariest one for me, of course, comes from my girl Amy Acker.
I know.
Of all things.
I know.
A giant goddamn tentacle out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was hard for you. I know.
That was hard for me.
They've got giant snake, giant spider, zombies, mummies, scarecrows, something called the sugar plum fairy, which is
some weird racial stereotypes.
Yeah, some weird racial stereotypes because I mean, what's scarier than xenophobia, you know?
Yeah.
So it literally, and then what's her name again?
Amy Acker?
Amy Acker. What does Amy Acker say to the actor who plays Truman, that it's not the stuff nightmares are made of, it's the stuff of which nightmares are made. No, that's wrong.
No,
that's the opposite of what I want.
Yeah, he says this is the stuff of nightmares. And she says,
no, this is the stuff of which nightmares are made. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty poignant. So it's got great body horror, great horror acting, especially if you're using practical effects or special effects. You don't see, like, the actors don't really have anything to react to. They just need to act, which, you know, is good. It has literally every horror.
I do want to, in terms of practical effects, give another shout out to the merman
that
they make, and there's a spout of blood that comes out of it. That is all actually, you know, a practical effect happening. There's just like drowning in fake blood when they shot that.
I love it. And it's funny because it does kind of like walk that really fine line between horror and comedy.
Yeah, which is something Joss Whedon is talented at. Yeah, bringing humor into different genres.
When they go downstairs, the jump scares are really good.
They are.
I think jump scares are something that's really overused, but I think they did a really good job. And honestly, the thing that makes a really good horror film for me is that, you know, in the end, the bad guy wins.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a thing you like?
I do. I like when the bad guy wins. I like when it's not a happy ending, because to me it's a horror film. And, like, horror films shouldn't have a happy ending. Except for The Babadook. The Babadook has a happy ending, and I appreciate that.
I know nothing about The Babadook other than he's a gay icon.
I don't know how that happened.
It was a Netflix glitch. It wasn't even based on anything.
And now it just stuck, yeah. That has a relatively happy ending, and I think it works. But I like that, you know, they don't save the world. The ancient ones are not appeased, and they rise, and we are led to believe that every living thing on Earth is destroyed.
Or at least I mean, we don't really know what the old gods are going to do when they come back, because they used to rule over the earth, and presumably there were people back then, too.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how did they make the deal and come up with the ritual to keep them asleep?
That last final scene is so great, where we just get this out of the literal cabin in the woods, this huge, fiery hand that just comes down and, like, smacks onto the earth and cuts to the credits.
Yeah, it's a really good last scene.
Yeah, it's a really good last
shot.
Scene. And that, to me, is something that I really look for in the kind of horror that I most enjoy.
I also want to say, to your point of them not succeeding, the bad guys winning.
Yeah.
Technically, it depends on how you look at it, because the company, in my mind, are also kind of bad guys, even though they're the ones that are trying to save the world. They're also the ones who are responsible for all of the horror that we actually see. Because we never actually see the horror of the old gods. We only see the horror that the company does.
That's true, in order to appease the old gods.
And it's Marty, who wants to see society crumble, who actually wins.
He does,
So in a way, Marty does win. He convinces Dana not to kill him.
That's true, and just let it all burn.
They decide to just go down with the ship together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in a way, it does have they do win, kind of, question mark? I don't know. It's something to think about.
Yeah, I also... I noticed a couple of new things this watch, that when Jules gets stabbed in the hand, it is at almost the exact halfway point of the film. So, like, that's really, like, at the almost exact halfway point is when, like, the carnage starts.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting to me. And then I also noticed, maybe tell me what you think, but the Virgin, or Dana, right,
yes.
is probably when are they down in the cellar again? They're somewhere, and there's like a zombie above them.
Oh, that's when they find they call it the black room?
Yeah.
The black room.
Yeah.
It's like a room adjacent to the cellar.
Okay.
Because Kurt comes through from the cellar to get them.
That's right. So they've been separated. Jules is dead at this point. They are led to believe that Marty is dead as well.
Yeah, it's just Dana and Holden together, though Kurt finds them.
And then Kurt finds them. And they are attacked by one of the Buckners.
Matthew Buckner, I believe.
Gosh, you're so good at this.
No, or maybe Pa Buckner.
I couldn't tell you.
I don't know.
Yeah. Attacked by one of the Buckners, and
the big hulking one is Matthew Buckner.
Was it the big hulking one? No, the big hulking one is the one
with the bear trap.
Yeah, with the bear trap.
So it's Pa Buckner then.
Who almost takes Dana down at the very end at the dock.
So it must be Pa Buckner then.
Yeah. And Dana takes him out, or at least incapacitates him.
Actually, that makes sense because in the diary, in Patience Buckner's diary, she says, Matthew told me that Pa took Judah
to the black room.
To the black room, so I know I won't see him again.
Oh.
So if Pa Buckner goes after them in the black room, that's like his spot where he kills people.
I see.
I actually have thoughts on the Buckners, so we can circle back.
Oh, good. Yeah, let's circle back. So I noticed that probably at about the same time in the timeline that Dana is in. I don't know if she kills that zombie, but incapacitates that zombie. Is probably in the timeline pretty darn close to where Marty is also killing
Judah Buckner.
So I really like that kind of juxtaposition of pretty similarly at the same point in the timeline, both of these archetypes are killing zombies.
Yeah, having their first kills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they come back together and they end up kind of being our duo for the second, or for that kind of last act.
Yeah, climax stuff. Can I talk about the Buckners?
Let's talk about the Buckners. Okay. Tell me about the Buckners.
Well, first, this also ties into my thoughts about like where we actually are, where this cabin is. Like, is the cabin a real thing, or is it all a construction of the company?
Right. Are the Buckners real people?
Right.
Right.
See, I was thinking that the Buckners were real people.
Mm-hmm.
And what my question was, see, I noticed something that I'd never thought about before, which is that there are 5 Buckners.
There are?
There's Ma Buckner, Pa Buckner, Matthew Buckner, Judah Buckner, and Patience Buckner. You especially get a look at them in the painting of the sacrificial lamb or whatever that they take down that's hiding the one-way mirror.
Yes.
That guy standing in the background who always looks creepy with the cane and the black hat.
Uh-huh.
It's because I saw a picture, like a promotional photo of all the Buckners as like taking a family photo together.
Oh, okay.
And that's how Pa Buckner dresses.
Oh.
He's got his cane and his black hat.
Oh.
So that shadowy figure in the back is Pa Buckner, and then we have the 4 other Buckners in the front. Ma Buckner with her long, saw, with her long saw that she uses to behead Jules.
Oh, yeah.
That's Ma Buckner.
Okay.
Judah Buckner has his trowel.
Sure,
That
the trowel.
He goes after
Which
Marty.
then becomes his demise.
Yeah.
The trowel, yeah.
And, Matthew Buckner is the big hulking scary one who gets the husband bulge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, gross, yeah.
And then there's, and we don't really know. I mean, we know about Patience Buckner because she's the one whose story we get, but she doesn't seem to actually kill anybody.
No, it was my understanding that, I think her full name is Anna Patience Buckner.
Yeah, she has a first name.
That her heart's not in it.
No, well, because, she doesn't get the husband bulge.
She's not in the and thank God. Her heart's not in the family business of murdering strangers.
So what I was thinking about was, if this is where the old god is slumbering,
sure,
right? Because we can sort of see that roiling fire beneath them,
yes,
and all of the blood is dripping down to this ancient one. If this cabin already existed, if this was the place where the Buckners decided to live, is that what made them start going mad because of the influence? Or B, were they led there to be a sacrifice? Were they one of the ones that, like, because the more I thought about Patience Buckner, the more I realized she's literally the final girl of her family.
She is, yeah.
She's the last one we know anything about.
She's the virgin.
She's definitely the virgin.
Yeah.
All of the other Buckners get taken down, or at least, like, incapacitated for a while. Yeah. At the very least, we don't see them for the whole last sequence down in the
In the downstairs.
Down in the downstairs,
yeah.
right? We never see any of them away from the cabin, except for Patience Buckner.
Huh.
She's also the one who, if you think of the director as kind of being the bad guy to all of these monsters, considering that all of these monsters are stuck in these traps.
It's true,
which would suck. They're as much captives as the 5 co-eds.
Absolutely.
Patience Buckner is the one who takes down the director.
It's true, she does.
She gets the final kill.
That's true.
She's a final girl.
And she has a disability, only one of her arms works.
Yeah, her good arm got et.
Her good arm got et.
Her good arm got et.
Like, as an eaten?
I think so.
Okay, just checking, because, when I don't know when the Buckners are supposed to, when their time is supposed to be.
My understanding is early 1900s.
Okay, yeah, you have a much greater command of the history of the English language than me, so I'm gonna defer to your
Pioneer
judgment.
days.
Yeah.
Pioneer days.
So,
but again, I'm not really sure if, this cabin is even a real cabin, or if the Buckners are even real people, or if they're constructs.
Right.
Like, how much of this has been created by the company?
Right, because the point is that you see all the monsters downstairs, and it's just, any kind of horror movie monster you can think of. Werewolves, vampires, mummies.
Are there vampires?
The goblins. I mean, I assume. Yeah, there's the big vampire bat.
Remember you're right. There's the giant vampire bat.
Yeah, the snake, the spider, these things.
The weird buzzsaw mechanical thing.
The doctors.
Oh God, the doctors.
The dolls.
Yeah.
The scarecrows.
Jacqueline.
Kevin,
who's just a serial killer.
Kevin is definitely one I'd like to know more about because he's on the roster when they're betting, the betting pool. But we don't ever see him during the quote unquote system purge.
As far as we know, there's, some hard things to make out.
So, that's a really good point. Are these beings real? Mm-hmm. And have been collected, or have they been created?
Yeah.
And I think that the answer is both.
That's actually a fair point.
Yeah.
Often the answer is both.
Often the answer is both. Yeah, I think that because, a lot of those horrors that, are reflected downstairs, right, reflect human anxieties, right? We get the... What was his name? The one who was supposed to be a stereotypical Native American.
Oh, was he the Huron?
Huron, yeah, the Huron, yeah. And then you mentioned. I swear
there is one who looks like some sort of 1001. No, wait, what is it?
Tales of the Arabian Nights.
Yeah, Tales of the Arabian Nights style, bandits type who throws a guy to the snake.
Sure.
That's the vibe I get from him.
Yeah, so we think about human anxieties, right? Getting bit by a snake is a human anxiety, right? Having no control over who we become, like a werewolf might, having no control over our most base desires or
I mean, that's the whole point. I have not seen Hellraiser.
Sure, yeah.
I do not know what this pinhead fella is.
Oh yeah, he's a Cenobite.
I know that Jamie Clayton is playing in the new Hellraiser. Jamie Clayton's in it.
Okay,
looking hot as a pinhead.
Great, I love that.
I don't know anything else about it.
Yeah,
but isn't that the deal with the pin? They're
Cenobites. Yeah,
they play on people's desires.
Yes,
and
bring
fears
them into hell
and things.
Yeah.
And that's the vibe.
And there are many Cenobites, but Pinhead is the most popular, I would say. And also,
so our Razorhead guy in this is a clear.
We have, according to the Cabin in the Woods wiki fandom page, we have a Cenobite that lives downstairs. What's his name again?
Fornicus, Lord of Bondage and Pain.
Fornicus. See, now that makes me think of fornication.
Yeah, I think that's the idea.
But bondage and pain.
Which, I mean, can also be sexy.
True, yes. Some people are into that,
It gives Matthew Buckner a husband bulge.
Oh my God, you will not let the husband bulge go.
Neither will Marty, I feel justified.
Yeah, that's true. This is interesting because I am the sex ed teacher.
Yeah.
And you're the one going on about the husband's bulge.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's also part of what Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon, probably what they intended to do was to have all of their favorite horror movie tropes
and
monsters in one place, which includes Cenobites.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we want to move on to talking about some literary conventions and devices.
So this is Lit Crit Corner.
With Katy.
I
mean, one of the things is that when we're talking about references, this film is full of references to other films.
Yes.
Fornicus is one of the main ones, a total ripoff of Hellraiser.
Literally a Cenobite, yeah.
But all of, pretty much every other monster in it, too, is a total ripoff from something else.
Absolutely.
I say ripoff with love, to be clear.
Yeah, an illusion.
Well, see, yes, I wrote down. Illusion is a often kind of brief, direct reference to another work within a work. Intertextuality is similar. It's another reference, but it's normally it uses the ideology or the plot of another text as the backbone of a new work. So allusion would be quoting a line from the Taming of the Shrew to give you an idea that this character is, I don't know, maybe a feminist or a sexist, or say something about gender probably if it's Taming of the Shrew. Yeah. Intertextuality would be more like how 10 Things I Hate About You is a modern version of the play.
A modern retelling.
Yeah, that updates its message and kind of plays off its message about gender relations. And then within 10 Things I Hate About You,
God, I love that movie.
We have a scene where Kat's reading the bell jar.
Yes, she is.
So there's another reference.
Also,
that's an illusion.
When Kat, this is not relevant to.
I love it. Tell me anyway.
At all. In 10 Things I Hate About You, when Kat comes out of the record store and Patrick is waiting for her, she has a copy of Green Day's Insomniac in her hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
And see, these are all things that if we get the references, tell us a lot about her character.
Yes.
We know she's deep on the feminist bend.
Yes. She wants to go to Sarah Lawrence.
Yeah. And so, the interesting thing about Cabin in the Woods, and the interesting thing I think about the fact that it was the first horror film that you got me to go see with you.
Right. That is important, yeah.
Is that it's full of references to other horror films that I did not understand. I did not know Hellraiser was a thing.
Yeah.
When the first time I was saying this earlier, the first time, and actually every time I see the Razorhead Cenobite guy, he looks so sad, and I get so sorry for him.
He does. He's got a sadness in his eyes, absolutely.
I have no context for him or his movie, so I don't really get what reference they're trying to make.
Right.
I just have to make up my own. So that's kind of the problem, the drawback with references, is that it relies on the audience getting them.
Yeah.
The idea with Cabin in the Woods is that it's really for horror fans.
Absolutely, yeah.
And yet I wasn't a horror fan, and I really loved it, so I don't know.
Well, I think it also takes a really, a fresh approach to horror.
Yes.
This idea of we think about the ancient ritual. I'm thinking about Stravinsky's Rite of Spring because I'm a music nerd, the way you're a lit nerd.
Yes.
And this idea of being required to make a sacrifice and what that looks like in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
That these rituals are not something that died off thousands of years ago. They're still incredibly relevant to our lives, and making this ritual sacrifice to I think they're only ever called the ancient ones or the old gods, which makes me think there's more than one.
I assume that there's one since they have setups in all of these different countries.
Yes.
I kind of just assumed there was a different old god slumbering in each of those spots.
Right, and but do those old gods talk to each other?
Must,
are they hey, I've been appeased, let's chill for the next year?
I'll show the blood. Don't worry about it, guys. Yeah. I got some virgin here. I got some whore. What do you want?
The fool's delicious.
Oh, this fool got zombie in him.
So even if if you're you were coming into watching this movie for the first time with very little horror knowledge, it still
has a lot else.
It has a lot more going on. It's a very interesting story, star-studded cast.
And I mean, once again, Joss Whedon, problematic human, pretty damn good with dialogue.
I mean,
and besides for all of these quick, direct references and allusions to other horror movies, like with the Cenobite of Hellraiser, we also have the big intertextual plot point that's the main first part of the movie, first half-ish, which is a bunch of young people go to a cabin in the woods and read something out of a book that they shouldn't have and summon horrible monsters, which is definitely from a movie that exists.
Yeah, Evil Dead.
Evil Dead.
Yeah.
And it's called Evil Dead, and I have not seen it, and you have?
Yes, I've seen Evil Dead. It's good stuff, yeah.
Well, maybe one day. Maybe one day.
Yeah.
I will understand that reference.
Well, and in Evil Dead, what they're supposed to be reading is the Necronomicon, which is a book made up by H.P. Lovecraft, is my understanding. So,
but it's a classic horror book that comes up in so many things.
Right. Talk about a problematic fave, H.P. Lovecraft.
Fave?
Yeah.
I mean, also, though, talk about old gods.
Talk about the old gods. Absolutely, yeah. Old gods, yeah.
He's our guy for that.
Yeah, he is, yeah. So, so, and then not only that, but there is one of the creatures being kept downstairs are some Deadites, which are from Evil Dead as well.
Oh!
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Are those like zombies or?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah, just checking.
No, but then there is one more reference that I got way too deep in because it fascinated me.
Of course.
Which is that at one point, Marty decides he needs to go read a book with pictures.
With pictures. God bless Marty. Yes.
And that book is Little Nemo in Slumberland.
Nemo, your shit is topsy-turvy.
Topsy-turvy. You gotta wake up.
Gotta wake up.
Okay. My question is, do we think Marty brought that book with him? Or was it there?
It is my understanding that book was there.
Okay, that was my understanding too. This is comic strips that were being written at the turn of the century, i.e. Buckner era.
Oh.
And like, it's a story about a kid who, when he's sleeping, goes into Slumberland.
Of course.
He's meant to be the companion of the Princess of Slumberland, but often different trials get in his way, so it like takes him a really long time to actually get to meet her. And each strip ends with him waking up. You know?
Naturally.
And I can so imagine poor little Anne Patience Buckner reading that.
Yeah.
You know, and wanting to escape.
Yeah.
In her dreams. And it's just like really, oh my God, sad.
Yeah.
Another thing, I was thinking about why they chose that book for this.
Right. Yeah.
And there are two things. One, did you know that the bar in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, is called Little Nemo's?
Oh, you know what? I think I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called Little Nemo's.
Oh, okay.
Which makes sense.
Is that the Nightmare on Elm Street? That's the one with the young people in the
like insane
asylum
type.
Yeah.
I guess not a sane, just
yeah.
asylum. I don't know.
Sanitarium.
Yeah,
I don't
whatever
know.
you want to call it. Yeah. And I kind of wonder if that's what got Goddard and Whedon thinking about that book was
maybe
when they were referencing other horror movies.
Right, yeah.
If it's more of a reference to that than to the book itself. But the other thing about this, it's actually comic strip. It would run like weekly.
A series. Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's known, actually, people who are into animation and comics, this is like a super famous series.
Wow,
because it like revolutionized how like layout.
I imagine it would be one of the earlier comic strips.
Yeah. Well, and it was the first one who sort of played with how the panels were laid out and would like do interesting things. And he was also responsible for some of the early like animation that happened. So he's really big. Like he was an inspiration for Walt Disney and things like that. Like a lot of people
and
talked
iWorks and stuff.
Yeah. So he's like a big deal. This like Little Nemo is a big thing that I had never heard of. It has a lot of meta references and a lot of fourth wall breaks.
Oh, okay.
Which seems relevant.
Which also makes sense because if it's mostly happening in dreams, then that makes sense. Yeah.
And the thing that I really found, it was kind of hard to find like actual panels on the internet. I was just trying to find, I read a few of them. I'm not a super expert on it,
of course.
But I did find out that he has Little Nemo. He has a friend who is a clown named Flip.
Okay.
Who is a bit of an Irish stereotype.
Uh-oh.
He's like green and smokes a cigar. And is like a weird. But he sometimes wears a hat that says "Wake up."
Oh.
And he's a clown, i.e. a fool.
A fool, yes.
AKA, it's Marty.
It's Marty.
It's Marty. Like, he
telling everyone else to wake up.
He tells Nemo to wake up because his world is topsy-turvy.
Yeah.
And this is right after the previous scene where he's trying to get Dana to, like, wake up to what's going on and how everybody's acting out of character.
Right. Well, and also, I'm glad you brought this up because we see through Marty's perspective, let me refer to my notes here, that he is several times hearing voices.
Yes.
Which made me kind of think about how are we defining a fool? Like, are we thinking about a clown like someone funny? Are we thinking about someone who we would now consider to have a learning disability?
Right.
Are we thinking about somebody who has like a mental illness and maybe is hearing disembodied voices? But he's hearing voices, which I think is part of him not being fully brainwashed. I don't...
Right. Because the chem department, Amy Acker talks about how they realized he had one secret stash of weed, which somehow inoculated him to a bunch of the other chemicals they were putting in him. So that's part of why he can hear the voices and isn't fully manipulated.
Right, because he hasn't been drugged in the same way that Jules has in her hair dye.
Yeah. Somehow his other drugs counteracted their drugs.
Or maybe they laced some of his drugs, but he had another stash that they were not counting on him deciding to take for their cabin in the woods trip.
You potheads, you always just have other stashes somewhere.
I mean... Yeah.
I mean, you can also, though, talking about, like, what fool means.
Right.
You could also think about, like, the classic Shakespearean fool.
Tell me more.
Or, like, the role that a jester played in a court.
Oh.
They're the one person who's meant to actually speak the truth.
Right.
And can speak the truth to, like, the king without getting murdered.
Yeah.
Because they're going to do it in, like, a chill, funny, easy way.
And they're just a fool. What do they really know?
Yeah. But sometimes they're the only person, like, the fool is like the person who can really talk through to King Lear in King Lear, you know? Like the fool is actually kind of a smart character in certain ways.
Right. Do you want to get into archetypes now, or do you have
we
one
are
more
already
thing?
talking about fools, so
we are, and
let's get into archetypes.
So let's stick with the fool for a second, because I noticed the first time this last watch is that the fool is the only of these 4 archetypes that has a tarot card associated with it.
Ooh, tarot.
Yeah. So remind me, when the fool comes up in tarot, let's say right side up, not reversed, what does the fool mean?
The fool, it's the first one in the major arcana, the first card of our deck.
He's number 1, isn't he?
Okay, I think he's number 0.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah, and so he represents a new beginning, the beginning of a journey. Right. He represents taking off a little bit like naivete because you haven't really started the journey yet. You don't necessarily know.
You have no idea what you're in for.
But yeah. I mean, because we get the classic image of this fool striding forward with a little dog at
with
his
his dog, yeah,
looking a little bit like he's about to walk off the edge of a cliff.
Right.
But who knows?
Who knows?
The fool knows what he's doing. And the whole idea is that the whole major arcana is supposed to be about the fool's journey.
Wow. Is this entire movie just about Marty?
Yes, I would argue yes.
I would argue yes as well, because he's my favorite character.
Right. See, I'm not as biased. Jules is my favorite.
Oh, okay. I can't wait to talk about that.
The other point that they bring up in the film about the fool, I don't know if they say it explicitly, but it's clear in the little drawing of the archetype that fills with blood. He's holding a wine glass, or it actually kind of looks like a martini glass. But I think that's another aspect of the fool is intoxication. But if I think about the time of the ancient ones, indigenous societies, there's been a lot of history of using different types of intoxicants.
Absolutely.
To go
on a trip, man.
To go on quests of knowledge and self-learning and stuff. Yeah. That the fool, rather than being a comical stupid character, is actually often the wisest and the most spiritually oriented character.
Absolutely. And I think
that's why it's a little weird to make him just a pothead. That's not the same thing.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because he is the only one using marijuana. However, everyone else is consuming alcohol.
They get drunk.
Right? And
Jules and Kurt especially
get really drunk.
Wasted.
And
to the point that Dana even asked Jules if she needs to lie down.
Right.
She's noticeably drunk.
Yeah. And that this is unusual behavior for her friend, right?
Yeah.
But Marty's he's getting high. He's figuring stuff out. He's the only one making any sense. He's the one who says, all right, I'm drawing a line in the fucking sand. Don't read the Latin.
Yeah.
But do they listen to him?
No.
No, ma'am. No.
No. Because he's the funny fool. He's easy to ignore.
I identify with that.
Yeah.
I just really like the fool.
I do think in terms of archetypes, if we got stuck in a horrible cabin in the woods,
right,
you would be the fool.
I would hope so.
I'd be the virgin, let's be real.
You would be the virgin. However, this is, if we're talking about archetypes now, this is something that frustrates me greatly is that, but however is not surprising to me at all, that when the director, Sigourney Weaver's character, is kind of setting it up for us and telling us about the 5 archetypes, and we see the symbol of those archetypes with or without blood in them, because that's who needs to be sacrificed. There are, of course, only 2 roles for women, and that is the virgin and the whore. And it's like, wow, how original, you know?
How original.
So we have two women in this cast, 2 female characters. So therefore, one of them has to be the virgin and one of them has to be the whore.
Yes.
So whenever I see a group of 5 people or beings, I immediately think of the archetypes. And if there are 2 women, then I find myself being like, okay, well, one of them is the virgin, one of them is the whore.
Yeah. See, I have thoughts about that.
Right.
I don't know if I want to get into them yet, because they're part of a very large rant that I have.
Though I do think about that a male character could be a virgin, but I just don't see how a male character could be a whore. Because being a whore is something very specific to female sexuality.
It is. Though I also have thoughts, if I'm, again, going back to, like, older pagan societies, I can also see the whore has been, the idea of a whore has been different in different times. Right now, we're looking at the virgin and the whore from this very, like, Christian purity culture. But if I go back to, like, Gilgamesh, who helps turn Enkidu into, like, a man, who civilizes Enkidu, is this spiritual whore woman, this spiritual sex worker. She sleeps with him for, like, multiple days. And that's how he becomes civilized.
That sounds exhausting.
I know,
That sounds exhausting.
Girl is like, she's doing her job.
Sex work is work, man.
Sex work is work. And none is working more than her. I wish I could remember her name right now. But, like the idea of sex work and in different cultures could be like this really high priestess type role. Yeah. Just like fools could be this really like high spiritual role. But since we're looking at now all through this Christian purity lens, the whore is like the worst one, needs to be punished first, needs to be killed first.
Yes. She has transgressed. Yes.
And the virgin needs to be saved for last, because she's special and good.
She's special and good and could possibly be saved.
And could possibly live.
As fate decides.
Yeah, which is so Christian. Why do the old gods want this Christian shit? Do they? Or is this just the company misinterpreting stuff?
Right, because I actually did make a little note about that, is that the system of this company seems so deeply ingrained.
Yeah.
Right. It's like probably a system that's thousands of years old at this point. Yeah. And yet it's just run by regular people who make mistakes.
Yeah. And they even the language they have about how they need to transgress by choosing their death. That's talked about a transgression that needs to be punished, even though they're led up to it. So it's not really a transgression that they're doing. It's something that's constructed. And also, like, do the old gods actually care? Or is this just what the workers at the company care about? Because then they're less responsible for murdering people every year.
Well, the old gods do seem to be interested in sexy times.
So they say, yeah.
Because when...
They want to show.
They want to show as Kurt and Jules are having sex in the woods. Like, there's, like, some rumblings downstairs, right? And it's just like, you know, it's like very important that they get the boob shot.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, okay.
Yeah, whatever. It's fine.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I just sort of go to like, how much of this is what the old gods want? How much of it is the company thinking this is what the old god wants because of their interpretation of what these archetypes are? But this isn't actually what the old gods think of these archetypes as. Because our idea of virginity has changed so much over time. We've been talking about how the fool is something that can be classified in different ways.
Right.
You know, being an athlete today is so different than just being an athlete. God, back in like pioneer days, what even was an athlete?
Right. Yeah.
Just the guy who was farming the most.
If you ever watch like footage from old Olympics.
Oh yeah.
And you see like, I mean, you know, no shade. Like, you know, you see these older gymnasts from, you know, like the 1960 Olympics, and their gold medal routine is just like a backflip.
Yeah.
And like a twist.
Yeah.
and they land on their feet, hopefully,
Yeah.
And like, and now you see what an
Simone
Olympic
Biles
athlete is capable of.
Yeah.
And it's not even the same, right? And part of that is because of the, our ability to spend more time on things like that. But
yeah.
And this leads us into the fact that we think that they're archetyped incorrectly. Which inevitably leads to what I can only assume is the end of the world.
Yeah. So my peek behind the curtain is that I set up my fan theory, my personal theory about this movie, as if I was writing a literary analysis of this film.
Yep.
So my first starting observation was that the 5 main characters noticeably do not match their chosen archetypes.
From the beginning.
Yeah. Marty explicitly brings it up. Yeah. The director says we work with what we have. Right. Dana explicitly says she's not a virgin. Right. Like, we know that they do not fit their archetypes. Yeah. We also know that the company fails the ritual that is based on these archetypes. The ritual does not work. And the old gods do not stay asleep. Nope. So my thesis, essentially, is that the reason the ritual fails is because the main characters were incorrectly chosen to represent the 5 archetypes. Yeah. And so what? Why does that matter for that? Is that...
Well, the world's on the line.
Well, yeah, but also, sense of the movie industry and this company and the movie industry has become, too focused on the surface details of, these common themes or common archetypes and fail to actually look at the true essence of what they are and what makes them compelling. And I'm going to talk on that more, but that's just sort of where we're going. So let's just first look at why these archetypes are so wrong.
Right. Let's start with Kurt, the athlete.
You have a lot of feelings about
Kurt. I do. That was most of my notes was about Kurt.
Cool. Let's talk about Kurt and why he is not the athlete.
No, he's not.
And what maybe he should be instead.
Right. So I just wrote down some notes. I wrote that at the kind of once they get to the cabin and they're swimming in the lake.
Yes.
He calls himself a gorgeous man.
He does. I love that part.
I don't know, which is hilarious. Not scholarly, not foolish, not virginal. Maybe a little hoary? I don't know.
I mean, he is a very gorgeous man.
So it's interesting, though, because when we first meet him, he is talking to Dana about her classes.
Yeah.
And he's a sociology major.
He is noticeably a sociology major
yes.
with a full academic scholarship. He's one of only 2 people whose majors we even know.
It's true.
And Jules, who is pre-med.
Who's pre-med, yeah. But at a certain point, once they get to the cabin in the woods, he starts wearing a Letterman's jacket.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, part of the the company trying to take a person and mold them into whatever archetype they need them to serve.
Yeah. I mean, supposedly he is on a team because that's supposedly how he knows Holden.
Yes.
But we also know that he isn't the one with the fastest hands on the team because that's Holden. So
yeah.
Why is he the athlete if he's not even the best one?
Oh, but he does also mention that when they are trying to get out, Jules is dead. It's at this point that, again, they think Marty is dead.
Yes.
That they try to jump the gorge, canyon, I don't know what you call it, right?
Yeah.
And this is where he tries to fit into his archetype of,
I see where you're going.
I can make this jump. And then he also mentions, they're like, do we have any climbing gear? And he says, yes, in my dorm.
Yeah.
So he could be the athlete, right? He is apparently athletically inclined. Mm-hmm. He is playing at least one sport. He has a Letterman's jacket for something. Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe just for fashion, though. I don't know.
Yeah. So he does have some, athlete tendencies, but I still don't think it's right for him. And also we meet him and he does something scholarly and athletic the minute we meet him. Mm-hmm. He's talking about Soviet economic structures with Dana.
Yep.
And then he throws the football out the window, which Holden catches downstairs. Mm-hmm. So immediately we see him doing something athletic and something scholarly. And we already mentioned this a little bit. When we meet Dana, she is doing unvirginal things.
Yes.
She's in her underwear, which, don't get me wrong, no one likes to wear pants.
But what that made me think of is that the old gods explicitly like the whore to put on a show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But who does that? It's her in that first scene, and then also later for Holden, without knowing it, in front of that two-way mirror.
That's true.
Although, credit where it's due to Holden for being a little bit of a whore. For knowing that two-way mirror is there, knowing that Dana has not had time to put that gross picture back up.
Or nor would she probably want to, because it's
right.
Very unsettling.
She has not had time. He immediately goes into that room right in front of that two-way mirror and then starts to take off his pants.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Whore!
Holden. Come on,
buddy. I say lovingly.
Yes,
Holden. Okay, so we're saying that Kurt is not necessarily an athlete.
He could be an athlete or a scholar.
I think he has major scholar vibes. He's the only one we know who has a full academic scholarship.
That's true. Yeah.
He's not at school with like a sports scholarship.
No, it's academic.
And he's not the one with the best hands on the team. That is Holden.
Yeah.
And sure, we see Kurt throwing a football.
Yeah.
But it's like he's throwing it at the girls and he doesn't get it to them and it goes through the window. It's Holden who actually catches the ball.
Who catches it, yeah.
Holden's the athlete to me.
And avoids getting hit by a car at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And why do we have that Holden even is the scholar? What does he do that's scholarly?
Basically,
he wears glasses.
He puts glasses on about halfway through the film.
Which, does he need them?
And
who knows?
he also, again, to that jump scene where they're trying to get to the other side of the, canyon gorge, whatever you want to call it. He says you got about a 5-foot differential on both sides.
Does, which is such a dumb way to say it, though also could be a athlete way to talk about it.
Oh, I have no idea.
Because he's the one who would actually be thinking about like the practical, what you need to do to accomplish this task.
Right.
My feeling with Holden is actually that he's a very action forward kind of guy. The one thing he does that's scholarly actually to me is that he knows Latin.
He does know Latin.
Because he remembers it from a class he took in 10th grade. Which is not scholarly to me.
No.
That just means he went to a rich private school.
That is what that
means. That just means he comes from money.
Yeah.
That's not scholarly. I'm sorry, baby. But no, he's the one when they go to the gas station.
Yes.
He's the first one to go inside and see what's going on.
About getting gas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the one who really confronts the Harbinger first.
Yeah.
When Dana is alone in the cellar and screams, Holden is the one who goes rushing in.
Oh.
He's the action guy.
He is the action guy.
Yeah.
I
think they got Holden and Kurt mixed up.
I have a couple of things about Holden's character. Is that he dies by being stabbed through his brain.
Yeah. Is it the brain or is it the mouth?
It's both, because it's like a hook.
Oh.
Right? And so it kind of like gets him through the brain and then comes out of his mouth.
Yeah.
Really, again, great.
Yeah.
Great horror.
That is. I do believe that is Papa Buckner, by the way.
Okay.
I think. And then he gets stuck down in the water, and that's the last we see of Papa. Poor Pa Buckner.
Pa Buckner. Also, I was thinking about, because when I think of the word scholar, I think of, is it from something? A gentleman and a scholar?
Yeah.
And he is, I think, the most gentlemanly.
Holden?
Yes.
Interesting. I would disagree, but continue.
Oh, okay. I think he's very respectful of Dana's boundaries, like when they start to make out.
That's true.
And he's like, nothing you don't want, you know?
Yeah.
That he is sort of more action focused, that he's like, I will take care of it, you know,
yeah.
I am, you know, whatever. So I was thinking about that, like, oh, you know, because there's that saying, oh, you're a gentleman and a scholar, right? And I was like, so is he supposed to be the scholar and, like, also gentlemanly that way? Yeah. I don't know. That one's kind of one of my thinner arguments,
yeah,
I'm not going to lie.
I mean, maybe that's just who he is naturally. See, my feeling with, in terms of respecting Dana's boundaries, the man spends way too long watching Dana through that one-way mirror before he says something.
He thinks about it, for sure.
I'm sorry. The moment he notices her and then has that second of having like a jump scare,
like, oh,
and
boy.
then like, oh, that's what's going on.
Yeah.
He then sort of watches her dreamily as she like checks her teeth for spinach or whatever she does first, and then she starts to undo her top.
Yeah.
And he continues to watch, and he's like, "No, I can't watch."
Yeah,
and
he's like, "Oh, this is happening."
More.
That he has a decision to make.
Yeah.
What kind of person is he going to be?
And
right
he says
now?
himself. He actually tells her that he had an internal debate about it, arguing on both sides, blood everywhere. Like, I don't know, dude.
Fair enough.
A little bit much for me. A little bit much.
I wonder.
He makes the right choice in the end, and he does give fair play by immediately undressing himself. So I respect that.
Only fair. I just wonder if maybe because he's a man, that like my standards are just low, and that like he reached the right decision eventually, like therefore it's a win, right? That rather than like reaching the right decision of not being a creepy peeping Tom, with a two-way mirror that he didn't know existed until just then.
That's true. He could have just left it, and he didn't. So he does make the right choice in the end.
And they switch rooms.
And they do, which is the right call.
Yeah.
So he does. Yeah, I'm not like bashing Holden. I think he's great, and I like him.
He's all right.
But no, I specifically like him because he immediately addresses.
I just feel like he's the one we get to know the least.
He is, because he's the one that the rest of the characters know the least. I'm not even sure if Kurt knows him. I'm not sure if I believe that he's actually on the same team, or that's not just the company manipulating that.
That's true.
I mean, they made up a whole cousin for Kurt. Why not a teammate?
That's true, and we don't even get that until like the very last scene in the movie, where he's like, I don't know if Kurt has a cousin.
Yeah. And
I was like, well, we probably should ask Kurt when he was still alive.
We should have.
Well.
Yeah, no. So, I don't know. I think my theory is that they have Holden and Kurt mixed up.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, the thing with getting these people into archetypes is that we're all human beings and we all contain multitudes.
We do contain multitudes, yes.
So, you know, we contradict ourselves.
Absolutely.
Lots of things. So it's hard to say exactly, but definitely better choices can be made. There's literally no reason why Holden should have been made the scholar. Oh, but one last thing I wanted to bring up about Holden.
Okay.
Only character of color in the 5.
He is the only character of color.
And perhaps making the black guy the athlete.
Oh, a little heavy-handed.
A little bit on the,
a little on the nose.
Making it the scholar instead.
A little stereotypical.
As like, so I don't know.
Point.
The rest of them are just whiteies, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, I really think Marty is the only properly archetyped.
I disagree.
Oh my goodness.
Get to that.
Oh my goodness.
Should we talk about Dana first?
I think that that Kristen Connolly's character, Dana, is archetyped as the virgin and should not be. I think she should be the whore.
I agree with that.
And that Anna Hutchinson's character, Jules, is not the whore, but probably more like a virgin.
Okay. See, that's the one where I disagree. But let's talk about Dana first.
And then that leaves for me Marty as the fool. He is the fool. Yeah. But you disagree. I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, I want to establish what we do agree on first, which is Dana as the whore.
Absolutely.
My main thing for that actually is how she puts on a show. Whether or not she's doing it intentionally.
Right.
She's in front of that open window.
We not get a wearing shot, pants.
Yeah. And we get that shot later of her unknowingly putting on a show again for Holden.
Right.
How does she do it? She's unbuttoning her shirt, which is exactly what they have Jules do.
That's
when
true.
When she's being the whore and putting on the show. It's an exact match. We also have Holden making a joke about how, like, Jules and Kurt traded Dana to him in marriage, right? Which is, like, it's a joke. It's the closest reference we get to, like, actual, like, sex work or, like, domestic work, like, the sex trade, how the woman's role as, like, she is explicitly there to hook up with Holden. Holden's is explicitly there to hook up with her.
I was going to say, yeah.
He also might be, this is a side one.
Sure.
But Marty calls her a saucy minx.
Yes.
She's called a saucy minx, which is just really fun.
Does he say saucy or fetching?
Oh, he says something else as fetching later.
He says...
He calls her
fetching minx. Yeah, he call somebody a minx.
But definitely a minx, which is like, to me, that's like a traditional, like, nickname for somebody who's like sexual and.
Did you know that minx is my dad's nickname for my mom?
I did. I forgot about that. But somebody who's like minxy is like sexy. A vixen.
A vixen. Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing, comparing her to Jules, which I think is where you come in with the virgin whore, how they should be switched.
Yeah.
What do we know about Dana and Jules's respective sex lives?
Absolutely. We know that, we don't know that Jules and Kurt are in a monogamous relationship, but they are in a long-term, committed relationship. Yeah.
They seem to be in love. I don't know if they explicitly say it, but they are very loving with each other.
Yeah.
And joking and just seem to have a really happy, good relationship.
And again, Dana we understand that she has just gotten herself out of a relationship with one of her professors.
One of her professors who is married.
We understand is married.
And who broke up with her over email. I have a lot of angry words with this professor. I think he is a piece of shit.
Absolutely. So,
I don't want to, slut shame Dana. No. Because I don't think that she was at fault for any of this.
No. That she
was taken advantage of by her professor. He was in the position of power.
Yeah, that professor has significantly more power over her. Absolutely. But again, like, if we're looking at it from these, like, puritanical Christian ideas,
she's a
very whorish behavior.
She's a homewrecker. Yeah. And she's, getting in the way of education, you know? Like, we don't even know what her major is either. The only thing we know about her is that she's pretty good at art, assuming that she drew that sketch of her professor.
She is a talented artist, yeah.
I wonder if she's an art major.
Well, and she also seems to be taking a lot of the same classes that Kurt
I know, so she might also be into...
So she might be something in sociology.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
I wonder what Marty's major is.
I know, right? I'm like, is he just a philosophy major?
Right.
He would be.
Right.
Is he pre-law?
Pre-law. Is he like gender studies? I don't know.
Is he one of those guys who is like, well, his parents are paying for college, so he needs to be like business major, but he's taking a minor in music theory or something, you know, that he actually likes?
Yeah, something that actually speaks to him.
Dance. So then your argument is that Jules is our virgin. Would be
our virgin because, again, with the way that these archetypes are set up in a very puritanical Christian way, the whore and the virgin are roles designated for women.
Yep.
And if Dana is the whore, well, then that really only leaves one option for Jules.
Right.
Yeah.
I listened a while ago to this other podcast that just brought out forward the theory that the reason they chose Dana as the virgin is because she's done everything but. That's like, she just hasn't done PIV sex, and that's why she's the virgin. So she's like, I'm not really a virgin, you know?
She's like,
that's what Sigourney means when she says, you know, we work with what we have.
What we have, that she's just hasn't had vaginal intercourse.
Yeah.
Well, again, as a sex ed teacher, I call bullshit.
Yeah. And also, what kind of sex do Jules and Kurt have when we actually see them together engaging in whorish behavior? Only oral sex. They don't get around to intercourse.
We don't really get to see. It is assumed that he performs oral sex on her,
but we don't see them have actual sex.
No, it doesn't quite get to that point before.
I mean, assumedly they were getting to that point, but I don't know what they're into.
I don't know what they're into.
Yeah. This is also a side point, but I do find it slightly interesting that, like, she doesn't even get to have one last orgasm. I know. They kill her right when she's starting to enjoy herself. Oh my God. Okay. I do have a point that kind of goes to your idea of her being a virgin.
Jules being the virgin?
Yeah.
Sure.
Which to me just sort of more goes to her not being the whore.
Right,
Which is that, like, even her big sexy scene where she makes out with that wolf.
Yeah. Whatever that mysterious beast is.
Yeah. She plays it like a comedy.
She does,
She walks up to it all slow and is like, oh, who, me? Yeah. Oh, thanks, I just got it done. Like, oh, don't huff it. But, like, she's doing it as a comedy.
Yes.
And everybody is laughing along.
Yeah.
Until she starts to make out with it. And then everybody gets very, like, stone-faced. Like, that is not her usual behavior.
Right.
Right?
Right.
She's, like, clearly making a joke of things.
And we also, we are led to believe in the opening scene that she has just dyed her hair blonde.
Yeah.
Because that's how we can differentiate a whore from a virgin is...
blonde hair.
Blonde hair.
Represent the blondies in the house, i.e. me.
Yeah.
But no,
especially a bleach blonde.
I'm only
way
half
lighter.
bleach blonde right now, so I'm fine.
I mean, your hair's orange right now.
Yeah.
More of a salmon, whatever you want to call it.
Artificial, though, which is another horror.
Exactly, thing. Artificial, like bleach blonde. Like, that is not a color blonde anyone's hair actually is. And maybe some people.
The Swedes. But no, so it's that. It's her making out with the wolf and then dancing sexy in front of the window. Putting on a show very similar to Dana.
And they're confused because this is unusual behavior. Yeah.
Marty even says, I've seen her drunk. This isn't how she acts when she's drunk.
Yeah.
And then Jules goes over and flirts with him. And it's right after that and right after they go outside that Marty says, we are not who we are.
Yeah.
That this is not normal behavior.
Yeah.
And then when she goes outside, she does not want to have sex in the woods. She says no 3 times. Which is a very symbolic number to say no. I've never noticed it before.
I never noticed that either.
Yeah. At first, she just says that they should go inside, and Kurt's like, nah, it's romantic out here. We're all alone. It's great. Then she says she's cold, which is why the company makes it warmer.
Yeah.
And then They even send out the pheromone mist.
Right.
And she still says one more time, okay, this has been fun, basically, but let's go back inside.
Go inside. Before
she's convinced by Kurt, like, okay, we're making out. This is pretty sexy. She refuses it 3 times.
Wow.
That is, yeah. That's like the opposite of whore behavior.
Right.
So, yeah, I get the reading how she actually could be the virgin if we see the virgin as somebody who's in, like, a committed monogamous relationship.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is more so than Dana. But... No, go.
And also, she does almost pick the bride.
She almost picks the bride.
She almost puts the necklace on, which is, a white dress, which is, of course, an
symbolically pure.
Symbol of virginity.
Yeah. Good point. I never thought about that. So, yeah, I think there is an argument to be made for her to be the virgin. But my deal with Jules, I think the problem, part of the reason why they failed, is because they're sexist. Well, by thinking that it has to be that way.
Right.
It does. I mean, do the old gods fucking care about, like, if we're going back to, I don't know, a lot of indigenous American cultures didn't think about gender in the same way. How did two-spirit people fit into this? You know? So they're getting stuck on our modern ideas of gender and our modern ideas of purity, and that's why they fuck up the archetypes.
From, like, a Western European perspective.
They need to fit Dana and Jules in there.
Yeah.
Jules, when we meet her, the first thing she does is make 1,000 jokes. She spends her whole time joking.
That's true.
Like, almost every word out of her mouth is some sort of joke or some attempt to, like, make the other characters happy and have a fun weekend. That's her goal there.
That's true.
She's the entertainment party.
Yeah.
She's the fool to me.
Oh.
She's the fool. I mean, the way that she approaches the wolf
is
a big old joke. It's a big old show. Like, it's a comedy show. She's my fool. That's why I love her.
Oh, yes. So then who is the virgin then?
Marty.
Is it Marty? Is it because he's the only one who doesn't have a partner?
The first time we see him, he is the only one not in a heteronormative couple.
Right.
Right? And not only that, but, like, the 2 women do seem to kind of see him as, like, harmless. Like,
yes.
Like, he can get away with calling Dana
a fetching minx or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And, like, just sort of general #asexual Marty rights of, like, when they find that window, the 2-way mirror.
Yes.
The 1-way mirror, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
When they find that 1-way mirror, Kurt's like, oh, Marty wants to watch us pounding away. And Marty's like, I don't even want to hear that.
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
When they go out to go swimming, he's the only one who's not dressed in a bathing suit and doesn't get into the water.
That's
like,
true.
He's the one actively not engaging in all the, like, sexually tinged fun times of the weekend.
For the youths.
If this was, like, a fun getaway weekend that was meant to be sexy for these 2 couples, Marty's the outlier.
Yeah.
He seems to be the one who's, like, the most actively uncomfortable when Jules gets really overtly sexual.
Yeah.
He, like, gets very bashful when Jules flirts with him and says that they used to, be sweethearts.
We made out once.
Yeah. The only thing that we know he has ever done is made out once with Jules.
Right.
He very well could be a literal virgin. And I feel like part of the opening scene with Dana choosing to bring books and then Jules saying, no, you got to bring a bikini instead, is supposed to make us think, like, oh, yeah, Dana's our virgin who wants to read the whole time.
Yeah,
and Jules is our whore with the bikini.
Wanting to pack a bikini so that she can get out of it.
But, like, when we actually get there, who steps away to read? It's Marty.
It's a book with pictures.
And not only at any moment, but it's right after Kurt and Jules go have sex in the woods. And right before Holden and Dana start making out. So it's at that explicit, sexy moment where Marty removes himself from the situation.
Well, fair enough. Because, like, what else is he gonna do?
Yeah, because he's our virgin.
Because he's the virgin.
And that's why I agree with you that this movie is all about Marty. Because he's the final girl.
Because he is the final girl. I love when we have a male final girl.
Yeah!
I'm thinking of the second Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes. Good fucking movie.
Yeah.
No, and I want to talk about how wrong they are about thinking that it needs to be Jules and Dana as the virgin and whore.
Right.
Because I think their problem is, whether it's the movie itself or the company, I don't want to say which.
Okay.
Jules and Dana are mirrored with each other in really interesting ways. As if they're interchangeable.
Right. Well, they're the 2 women.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like, very, very early on, Marty says that society needs to crumble. He has that rant.
Yes.
And he tells Jules, you'll see it my way in the end.
Yes.
Who actually sees it his way in the end?
Oh, Dana does. Yeah. She's the one who sees it to the end with him. Yeah.
And then we have that turning point for Jules where she makes out with the wolf. After that is when she starts to behave whorishly.
Yes, of course.
The first shot we get of her is dancing in front of a window. very reminiscent to the actual first shot we have of Dana in her underwear in front of the window.
Right.
That's kind of extra interesting to me because that's Dana without being manipulated, and it's Jules with manipulation. And then another mirror that I feel like happens is she makes out with the wolf. The first monster they see in the elevator, it's Dana slowly walking towards the werewolf's face.
The werewolf's face.
It's like the violent version of the play that Jules puts on.
So Dana is seeing the werewolf. However, I think Marty is turned around and he's looking at something else.
I think... Or do they both see the werewolf first? She's just the one who gets close to it. Because then it's later when he's looking at the sugar plum while she's looking at Fornicus.
Yeah, and then he turns around and sees Fornicus. He's like, oh, God.
Yeah, and that's when Dana realizes that they had to choose. They made us choose.
Yes.
So, I mean, that just has a really sexist implication to me about how these women are basically mirroring each other all over the place.
Wait, Katie, you're telling me that there's sexism in our media?
It was the patriarchy all along?
It was the patriarchy all along.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether it's intentional on the part and is like a slam against the company, or if it's a sexism inherent in the writing. I don't know which.
Or both. Why not both?
I mean,
¿Por qué no ambos?
The other thing I was thinking about is the opening scene and like why that's our opening scene. Do you remember the opening scene? In the company, it starts with Bradley
that's true. That's who we meet first.
Yeah.
That's right. And they are
what is it?
Bradley Whitford's character.
It's Sitterson and Hadley.
Sitterson and Hadley, they're talking about just normal, boring shit.
They're specifically talking about how Hadley's wife is maybe going to get pregnant, and so she's been
baby-proofing the house already.
And he says it's hormonal, and Sitterson says, you're weird about women, and Hadley says, oh, you're one to say that. You're weird. Like, they accuse each other of being weird about women.
Weird about women.
And I think they are weird about women.
Yeah.
Because they're so hung up on these gender roles of, like, the virgin and the whore
have to be women. Yeah.
Which means that they're basically interchangeable. As long as they're women, they've done their role. They've worked with what they did.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. That's why they fail. Because they get hung up on, like, the surface of, like, what these roles should look like. And don't actually think of what they are, and totally miss the fact that, like, Marty probably is actually a virgin.
Might be a virgin.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have huge, a huge difference in the way we feel about female virginity versus male virginity, right? Male virginity is something to be gotten rid of.
Yes.
At, like, your earliest convenience.
Right.
Whereas female virginity is something to be, like, coveted and held on to, and, like, that's what gives you worth as a human, as a woman.
Yeah.
Is continuing to be a virgin. So, which also, obviously we think about our defining virgin as someone who's never had sex before, particularly vaginal penetrative sex.
Right, yeah.
But also, like, virgin just means someone young.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all young.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's part of what they get wrong. The director says it's all about youth, like youth is the main part.
Right.
Maybe that's really the only thing that mattered.
Is that they're young.
Yeah, and that they got so hung up on all these other parts.
Right. Which means that immediately they've fucked it up from the beginning because the whore has to die first.
Mm-hmm.
And that would, by our theory, be Dana.
And if Dana died first, that would have changed a lot of things.
It would have changed a lot of things.
And if it was okay if Marty lived or not, that also would have changed a lot of things, because Marty does live.
Marty does live. And it doesn't matter because the whore has to die first. They make that point very clear. Mm-hmm. So if someone else besides Dana dies first, they're already doomed.
Yeah. Actually, you're right.
Yeah.
They were doomed from the beginning by thinking that Jules was their whore when she clearly wasn't.
She wasn't.
I also think it's interesting that Marty, at least until the very end when Dana gets on board, Marty is the only one who actually is like, society does need a crumble.
Right.
He's the only one who, like, actively would be against the idea of sacrificing for the greater good or whatever. He's the one who actively would be like, no, that's bullshit.
Right.
And then he's going to be so hard to kill because he's never going to be able to, like, I don't know, accept any of the other ones dying or, like, sacrifice himself, kill himself at the end, you know? He's going to want to let the whole world go down with him.
Right. Which, to me, is something very foolish to...
I mean, I think that's a matter of perspective.
Yeah. Well, to me, yeah.
That's what that means.
Because because he says, oh, society needs to crumble, we're just too chicken shit to let it. But the idea of letting society crumble and not thinking any farther of the implications of what this means for people with access to less resources than he does.
It's true.
That, society will crumble and yet I will survive.
Yeah.
And I will come out the victor. And it's like, yes, but if, we think about society crumbling, I think about, a lack of government whose purpose is to help its citizens. Not there anymore. I'm thinking, this is just the health teacher in me. I'm just like, people are not going to have access to food, access to clean water and sanitation. They're not going to be as protected from illness and diseases. Thinking like, oh, well, let's just let society crumble and whatever happens to anyone else is like their problem.
That's true.
And that to me is very foolish and short-sighted.
Yes, but I don't know if that's necessarily fool archetype. Because I don't know that foolish and short-sighted is the same as being the fool. It could be naive, which is perhaps the virgin. The youngest, naive, most innocent one. I don't know. I mean, that's the problem with these archetypes. They're not well defined.
And they're vague.
Yeah. Though also, I'm thinking about, where I always come from with Marty.
Yeah.
Him letting the world end. Like, when it comes down to that final decision, if you were, I don't know, in Marty's position, would you, let yourself die or kill yourself to save the whole world?
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
If it were me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, I would. However.
If you were the virgin and I was the fool.
Right. So, however, if, when Dana is holding a gun to. And so, if I were, I had to kill
Actively kill somebody?
I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could.
Absolutely could not. No, and part of it is because I'm like, maybe the society that comes after this won't be better, but it can't be fucking worse because the society we have right now is built upon killing the people that I love. And for no reason other than they're young.
To appease the ancient ones.
But who decided this? Why is this the world that we need to live in? I don't know. I'm kind of on Marty's. I get what you mean about it being short-sighted, and I agree with that. But I also think about it in terms of I don't know. You get those sort of arguments about abolishing the police.
Sure.
What would we put in its place?
Yes,
well, it's I don't know, but the system we have right now is bad and actively killing people.
Right.
So let's think about what to put in its place.
Yeah, or we could give more money to social workers.
Yeah. So is there another solution to this that isn't killing? Are they every year going to this? I don't know. Wherever they are, the state? Are they pulling people from all over America? I don't know. It doesn't seem like they travel very far. Do they set up in different places? I don't know.
I have no idea.
But at very least, they're killing about 5 young people a year.
Right. And that's just in the U.S. because we also see
they were going to steal a whole...
In Japan.
Buenos Aires.
We see something
Chernobyl?
in, I think, Stockholm. We see Stockholm. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they were going to kill an entire schoolroom of Japanese schoolgirls.
Adorable little schoolgirls.
Little school. Why is that our system? That's fucked up. Is that really the best we've got?
Right.
What's the problem with the old gods? They never say what the wrong thing is about the old gods.
They just like a sacrifice.
Yeah. Which is not great.
They're, maybe a little, what's the word? Self-serving.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
If you do think about Marty as the virgin, it does open up the opportunity for there to have alternate endings for this movie.
Oh, yes.
Which is, mainly Dana, the director dying, Dana actually succumbing to blood loss because she just got ate by a werewolf.
She got ate.
Right? And, Marty being well, I guess I got to face the end of the world by myself, but then there goes Dana's blood down to the old god, and the old god just goes back to sleep. And Marty's well, I mean, I guess I am a virgin, so...
You can just live,
Right? That's an interesting thought. And then there's another thought of, if they did do the archetypes right, and it had been the fool and the virgin at the end, but in that case, Marty and Jules.
Ooh.
Jules, I don't know, pre-med, do no harm. She might have been, willing, you were saying, willing to, kill herself, sacrifice herself. And then that would have been a different ending.
It would have been.
If they had archetyped this differently, I also could see Dana being very willing to shoot Holden. Actually, really any of them being willing to shoot Holden. No offense to Holden, they just don't know him very well.
They just don't know him very well, yeah. He's the new guy.
And she said she was probably not going to shoot Marty, but she almost shot Marty, and they seem to be good friends. So, she'd probably shoot Holden. So, like, basically, if they had archetyped this in a different way, this could have gone very
different movie. Yeah.
It's just because they archetyped it the way they did.
And what I've always, ever since I saw this movie for the first time, what I've always dreamt in my fantasy is that, like, it would work like a video game, and each watching, there would be, like, a different monster they pick.
Yeah.
Because the Buckners are great, but, like...
I mean, they got 100% success rate.
They do have a 100% success rate, but, like, what's up with the doctors? Yeah. What's up with the dismemberment goblins? What's up with the angry molesting tree?
I don't really want to see the merman, but for Hadley's sake, let's see the merman.
Yeah, well, we do get to see the merman, yeah.
Just a giant-ass snake. Yeah, what would that
just
have
a giant
been
snake.
Like?
That giant snake has to have a 100% clearance rate.
And yeah, how could it not?
There's no way. It's huge.
They also have the thing about, like, what? They've had, like, the American company has been successful every year since, like, 82 or something.
Oh, yeah,
I want to see that year.
Yeah, what happened that year,
Who fucked it up? Which monster could not do it?
And also, I do wonder more of the specificity around the other rituals that are happening around the world.
Tell me about what's happening in Buenos Aires.
Yeah, tell me what's happening in Kyoto. I think it's Kyoto.
We see one where there's, like, a minotaur or something looking thing.
And then we see, like, a gorilla with horns.
Right, yeah. That's...
Yeah.
Yeah, what's going on there? Yeah. I want to know all about that.
Right. And then this was something I wanted to look up before we recorded, but it's way too late now. I was wondering about, like, are those parts of rituals that come from, like, that culture's folklore?
Yeah. I don't actually remember seeing any monsters that come from, like, noticeably come from other folklore. Like, I don't see any, like, Japanese only or, like, any chupacabra.
That's right, yeah.
You know? So that's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought about that before. One last thing I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
In terms of Marty being our final girl.
Yes, yeah.
Is how he actually has this weird relationship with the monsters.
He does?
Yeah.
Okay.
He has a connection to them. Like, who...
How so?
Who kills the director in the end? It's Patience Buckner with Marty given the assist. Like, the two final girls coming in to kill the director in the end, if the director is the evil one.
Right.
Right? I mean, I just think about all the monsters being, like, trapped there just as much as our young people are. Right?
Right.
And in a way, they work together to kill the director. They work together. He's the one who rejects the system and awakens the old gods, you know, which apparently are products. The monsters are products of the old gods. They say it comes from downstairs.
Yes.
So it's unclear. The zombie that Marty kills with a trowel.
Yes.
Saves them from getting shot.
Dismembered that guy with a trowel.
The zombie hand, the dismembered hand comes over and saves them immediately. Oh. The monsters never actually, other than, you know, the Buckners up above.
Yeah.
Once they get below, none of the monsters actually attack Dana or Marty.
They
don't even seem that interested in them.
No. I mean, fair enough, though, the monsters do seem busy.
They do.
Yeah.
When Dana almost kills Marty, it's one of the monsters that saves him. The werewolf. But Marty
sees the werewolf.
Yeah.
And doesn't say anything to Dana.
Yeah.
Probably
Again,
because he wants to live.
An interesting connection. I just feel like I just had this odd sense this time watching it that Marty and the monsters are on the same side. Oh. And that they actually want to awaken the old gods and not be trapped in their little cages anymore. And just let all of this crumble.
Do something
else. And be free, you know? It's too much surveillance. It's too much technology. That's what Marty talks about. That's what these monsters are stuck in.
Wow, little does he know what's going to come 10 years later. Because this movie is from 2012. And he's like, you want to talk about surveillance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my final thought.
Wow. Once again, so we want to play a game.
Oh, yeah, let's play a game. Let's play archetypes.
So we've correctly assigned the archetypes for the 5 characters in Cabin in the Woods. And this is just a fun game to play. When you have a group of 5, you can put them into, it's fun to put them into the archetypes of the whore, the virgin, the scholar, the athlete, and the fool. So one of my favorite scary movies of all time is Scream. Mm-hmm. I love Scream. which is, again, probably one of those movies you only watched because
you were like, yeah, we're watching this movie
But
now.
aren't you happy you did?
I do remember getting very scared when I went to the bathroom during it.
Oh, yeah.
It is a really good movie, though.
You didn't say I'll be right back, did you?
Oh, God.
So we were thinking about the 5 characters, the 5 main characters in the first original Scream, Wes Craven's Scream, 1996. We've got 5 main characters. We've got Sidney Prescott. We've got Dewey Riley, his younger sister Tatum Riley, played by Rose McGowan.
Oh, Rose.
We've got Gale Weathers, and we have Randy Meeks.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking if we put them in those archetypes and we follow the cabin in the woods rules of the whore must die first.
Yeah.
That puts Tatum, Rose McGowan's character, pretty squarely as the whore.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. She does have a boyfriend.
Mm-hmm. But she's Rose McGowan.
And she's Rose McGowan. Also, I know
she's always the whore.
Also,
no offense to her.
I mean, she does wonderful work.
Yeah.
Also, I think anyone who's seen Scream, however long ago it's been since they've seen it, recalls how prominent her nipples are.
God, so...
And I understand that was probably, like, a choice of the time.
Yeah.
That it was the mid-90s, nipples were in...
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, I feel like her role in Charmed also had prominent nipples, which was not necessary.
I don't know. I believe you, though. Yeah. So, and we already know, again, that Sydney is the virgin.
Yeah.
We know she's literally a virgin.
She's explicitly a virgin until the monster of the film, the villain of the film.
One of them.
Sleeps with her.
Right. So she has to be the virgin, right?
And she's the one who gets the final kill?
She is the final girl. So, like, she kind of has to be the virgin that way.
Yeah.
But then that leaves Dewey, Gale, and Randy. And I'm going to make the argument that Randy is our scholar.
Ooh, because he knows the most about horror films.
He knows the most about horror films. He understands what they've gotten themselves into.
See, I was going full because he's, funny.
Yeah, because he is funny.
I think you have a point.
But see, then that would... So if I think that Randy would be the scholar. Mm-hmm. I think Dewey's the fool. He's kind of bumbling.
Yeah.
Not confidence-inducing because he is in law enforcement.
Yeah.
But then that leaves Gale to be the athlete.
I mean, she is a go-getter.
She is a go-getter, sure.
She almost is always the first one rushing into places.
That's true.
And she has some actual kills on her belt by the end of this whole series.
By the end of the entire series,
she's got quite a few kills.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes her an athlete.
I think there's also a scene of her running in heels, which is an athletic feat for sure.
I mean, I feel like the more stereotypical version of the archetypes, but again, people don't fit into archetypes very well, would be Dewey as our athlete because he's our, like, lawman.
Sure.
Gale as our scholar because she's, like...
interested in pursuing the truth.
Yeah, she's interested in pursuing the truth.
Yeah.
Though that could be maybe the fool, if we think about the Shakespearean fool.
Mm-hmm.
In which case, so yeah, her and... I forgot his name again.
Randy.
Her and Randy could maybe switch between the fool and the scholar.
Right.
I think arguments could be made for either of them.
Absolutely, right. So, okay, I'm going to give you a group of 5, and you're going to tell me who fits what archetype.
Yeah, rapid fire.
Rapid fire. All right. The Spice Girls. So
easy. Easy.
Oh,
I got this. Posh Spice, obviously our whore.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Obviously our whore. She's the most sexual. She always has the shortest skirts and the most makeup.
She does, yes.
Shortest skirts, most makeup. Whore.
Yeah.
Baby Spice is probably our virgin.
Definitely.
Baby Spice.
I would hope because she's Baby Spice.
Right, yeah. She's supposed to be young and virginal and
yes.
cutesy. Sporty Spice.
Athlete. Is there athlete? Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah, that's easy. Okay, this one gets a little more tricky. I would say Scary Spice is our fool.
Oh.
I feel like, I don't know, in this odd way, she's kind of the outlier. She's kind of the oddball in the group. And I feel like that could
Only one of color.
Only one of color.
Yeah.
She's the one who kind of does the more rappy part.
Sure.
You know, she's just kind of the different one.
Right.
And I feel like that gives her some status as a fool.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
Ginger.
Ginger is my scholar because she's the only one who named herself after an actual spice.
Done. Well, now, I thought that it was just coincidence because she's a redhead.
It is, but it's funny.
But it works, yes.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Rapid fire, your turn.
Okay.
Simpsons family.
Okay, so Marge, Bart, Homer, Lisa, and Maggie.
Yes.
Now, this is a tough one because Maggie is a baby. But if you are as big of a fan of The Simpsons as I am,
I'm not.
Maggie Simpson will fuck you up. She's
oh my God.
very violent, actually, yes. So I'm thinking Lisa is our scholar.
Absolutely.
Obviously.
I know enough about Simpsons to know that.
Yes. I think that Homer is our fool because he is literally of low intelligence.
Yeah.
And a lot of the comedy comes from Homer.
Yeah.
I think Bart is our athlete.
Okay. I know that he skateboards.
He skateboards. He's not our scholar at all. But then that just leaves Marge and Maggie.
I don't want either of them to be a whore.
I don't either. I think
either of them should die first. They should live forever.
Right. Well, I mean, they have. It's, tell me about it. Maggie's been one for 33 years now.
Yeah.
I think Marge is our virgin. She's very sweet. She assumes the best of people. Mm-hmm. She's very motherly in that way, right? And that leaves Maggie as the whore. And I don't want to call a fictional 1-year-old a whore.
See, that I feel like that's the fun part about archetypes.
Yeah.
Is that it never really works out in the end.
No.
They don't work.
I think because
that's what makes kind of the movie interesting, is that the archetypes don't work. That's why these rituals don't work.
That's why it failed, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
but it's still a fun game just to think about it.
Maggie often wakes up and chooses violence.
Is that athlete behavior, maybe?
Oh.
Is Bart the whore?
Is Bart a whore? Bart does love to put on a show. He loves to put on a show. He loves to pull a prank with an audience.
Yes. He's an attention seeker.
He is an attention seeker.
Which is often something that's lodged against, slutty women.
Of course, yeah. They're just doing it for the attention. Okay. Revamp. Okay. I'm keeping Lisa's the scholar. She's very intelligent. I'm keeping Homer as the fool. I'm still going to keep Marge as the virgin. However, yes, I think Bart is our whore.
Yeah.
And that leaves Maggie to be our athlete because she often wakes up and chooses violence.
Yeah.
She has, for a baby, has a significant amount of enemies. She shot Mr. Burns in season 6. Yeah, no, she's violent.
That's really fun.
Yeah, she has babies Maggie. Maggie has enemies who are fellow babies and adults.
I love that for her.
Yeah, so I guess that just kind of leaves her to be the athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just a fun game that y'all can play at home with, for example, the Scooby Gang.
Yeah.
If you want to decide if
which
a dog is a virgin or a whore. This has been Deep Thoughts, Shallow Plots.
Make sure to join us next time where we'll be overanalyzing 2015's The Witch.
We just want to take a moment to thank our sound guy, Matt, who is also responsible for our super awesome theme song.
Yes, thank you, Matt. And until next time, you gotta wake up. Your shit is topsy-turvy.